Analog radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Here we go. Today is Monday, October 21st, 2024, kicking off another brand new, amazing week here on Fade to Black. And you know what to do. Help support the show. Get yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt. 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. The links are below. You can get a Game Changer membership. You get a shirt. You can order a shirt or order 2 shirts. We have 2 shirts. Order 1 of each. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. The links are below. An amazing week we've got coming up tonight. Robert Bauer is with us for the first time. It's about time. And we're going to be talking about the metrics in the Matrix, that and a lot more tonight with Robert. There are no boundaries in the conversation tonight. Tomorrow night, Michael Schratt is back with us for Crash Retrievals Part 2. Last week, we didn't get through it all. So tomorrow night, Michael Schratt is back. We're going to finish up what we started last week with UFO Crash Retrievals. And Wednesday night, the return of JK Ultra, UFOs, AI, and the soul. Looking forward to that. And then Thursday night, it is also the return of David Palmer. The Leo King returns. We've got 2 comets this month in October. We're going to be talking about that, what that means with astrology. And as you know, he has got a way of tying astrology back into deep history and seminal events throughout human history. We're going to be doing all of that and much more on Thursday. Now, really quick, I've got 4 major events coming up. In about 2 weeks, I'm heading to Peru and Bolivia with Brian Forrester, and that is November 15th through the 27th. Oh, I guess that's about 3 weeks out. It's about 2.5 weeks out because I'm leaving early and I'm coming back late. I do that because I can. And the links for all of Brian's tours are below. Right after that, I am hosting the Conscious Life Expo right here in Los Angeles, California, at the LAX Hilton, and it is February 7th through the 10th, 2025. It is the biggest conference in the world. I've been hosting it for 10 years now, and this may be the biggest and best yet, and that says a lot. The links for the Conscious Life Expo are below. You've got tickets. You've got a full schedule. All of the speakers are there. Everything you need is on their website. Then after that is Rise of the Guardians. That is March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. Again, same thing. I'll be hosting. I'm going to present. I'm going to host some panels. We've got a big dance party that the Leo King is going to be DJing. And I'm going to arrange UFO Skywatch 2 as well. And I'm working on that. So we're going to have a great time that weekend in Sedona, Arizona. And announced earlier today, I will be in the Midwest. I'll be at the Contact Modalities Expo. This is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin. Beautiful resort there on the lake where this is going to be. We've got Scott Walter. We've got myself, Chris Bledsoe, a great list of presenters and speakers, and the website link is below, and more on this event and everything else as we move closer to the date. But this is just north of where I was born. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm going back to my hometown, Delavan, Wisconsin. Again, the Contact Modalities Expo. We announced it earlier today. The links are below. All right. I had something I was going to say, but that doesn't matter. I want to get straight to it tonight. Robert Bauer is with us. And now this is going to be a wide-ranging subject or conversation tonight because, despite or in addition to how reality is defined through signs and symbols, because he's an expert there. I'll get to that in a second. Words and language, we're going to get into that. How we experience reality. Informatica, okay, the Metrix and the Matrix, we're going to jump into that. And now, again, no boundaries on the conversation tonight. Now, he's an autodidact, semiotician. Do you know what that is? Look them both up and then tie them together. We're going to do that. And all of that is driven by the same things that drive me. It's called curiosity, seeker of knowledge. That's what we are. All of you Fadernauts, that's what we do. Okay. Now, he's a purveyor of consciousness. He has spent more than 50 years in music, 40 years in technology, 30 years exploring science and philosophy, and 20 years as a content creator. That's a big mouthful. We're going to do all of that and much more tonight. His links are below on our website and throughout social media. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black. See, I got all of that in as quick as I could because I don't want to waste a second by and saying good evening. How you doing?
I am above average, but I'm getting better, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, this is cool, and it's even better when I have a guest that has a background like mine. Literally, a background like mine. Very cool. But Robert, before we get started, let's get the first-time guest disclaimer out of the way. You knew this was coming, so let's do it now. Robert, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. Now, you have to accept, and we can move on.
Well, that's by default. I completely accept and agree and ready to get it on.
Okay, I thought you were going to dance. Okay, you didn't dance. Okay, good. I'm going to start here. I'm going to start. It sounds strange at first, but to you, it's not going to be. But I'm going to start here. Where we are today, I feel, is a representation of entropy at its finest. Starts out simple, starts out clean, ends in chaos and disaster. And we are observing now the possibility of entropy taking control. And what I speak of, it's globally as a planet. We started off simple, Stone Age man, figured out fire. Simple existence, right? And now it's a complicated mess. The internet, software, computers, going back to how simple things were. And now we've got Band-Aids on an internet infrastructure being fueled by updates on code. Now AI and its infrastructure now tied on to that and built on that backbone. The system wasn't designed for what it's doing now. And if it unravels, it's going to unravel quick. Do you think that's where we are? Am I thinking too extreme about entropy about to rear its ugly head?
Well, this goes to one of the fundamental tenets of my model of reality that I call Informatica, and when the subtext being the metrics and the matrix. And one of the fundamental tenets is that language is the operating system of the mind. So the words, the symbols, the sounds, the letters, the sentences, all of the constructs that come out of those components frame the reality that we experience with some kind of definition, delineation, right? So, having said that, let me go back to your point about entropy. Entropy typically refers to something degrading, right? And finally just dissipating, right? In my study of a number of different scientific disciplines, particularly in the quantum realm, mechanics and so forth, and following people like Rupert Sheldrake, are you familiar with his work? Okay. So I think he wrote a very pivotal book just over 10 years ago. What's called Set Science Free in the US, and it's called The Science Delusion, I think, in the UK. And what he did is he took the 10 dogmas of science and said, instead of them being accepted, let's observe them as questions. So the important thing for me within Informatica is to question the information that you're being presented with so that you have a fuller view of the field of the information that it's defining for you. So entropy really is got a lot of questions because we really don't see it anywhere. It's not observable. In fact, it goes to the second law of thermodynamics, which Sheldrake also addresses in his book. These assumptions that, for example, energy cannot be created or destroyed. That doesn't seem to be true because every time we look out in the cosmos, we see more of it. And now with James Webb, we've got infrared spectrometry getting telemetry that is showing us something that we didn't think was there. And most importantly, doesn't fit with the models that the math machines and models produced. So now they're scrambling, trying to figure out, well, apparently our calculations were wrong. What is it that we go look at and try to figure out how did we miss this? So to your point about entropy and where we are now, I don't think that entropy is what it's been set up to be. I don't think anything ever dissipates. I think it transmutes or transforms. So energy can be created because it's constantly created. And if it changes a form, it just transmutes into another set of frequencies of energy.
You know, and when entropy has a few different definitions. The second law of thermodynamics, and that's always presented, and you have to understand what is going on from a technical and scientific standpoint to fully grasp that. But a simplified version of entropy: you move into a new house with your kids, and your daughter's bedroom on day one is spotless. Look at that bedroom 5 years later, right? That's entropy, right?
I don't know. I think that's more accumulation and attribution of more stuff. I mean, to me, this is where it's really important.
No, I call it chaos. What are you talking about?
I had two daughters who are now in their 30s who've given me grandchildren. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But so back to another point that comes out of that opening statement of mine, which is this: we learned lessons with Internet 1.0, and I'm talking about 1994, 1995, and the introduction of search engines, and of course AOL and this stuff, and then pop-up ads and the anger that was around that, and we saw, and then chat rooms and the social media and how things started to evolve. We saw. Because we didn't regulate, we didn't control. It was the wild, wild west, right? So it just did. Now, the internet wasn't designed to have everything in the world connected to it, from traffic lights in your bank accounts to your friends list, right? And it wasn't designed for what it is doing now. And with all those, nobody pumped the brakes. We just let it do its thing. And now AI, which over the last year, AI has been around since the late 60s. And the ideas of machine learning and getting...
Well, when I help people try to understand, because there's a lot of FUD, right? A lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's spread all over. And a lot of it's on purpose, and it's malicious and it's nefarious. But to me, this is the best way to explain this is just the latest upgrade of Siri and Alexa.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
okay.
Man.
And that's all it is. You're not the sentient component of having any kind of organic, anything that resembles an organic consciousness in silica and hardware and something that's inorganic can't be done. Our physics don't do that, and that's part of the problem that is causing a lot of the chaos. That was also tied to your statement about entropy and the decay of civilization, right? So that whole idea of technology being able to improve the efficiency of systems, that's what these AI tools are. They're not, the two words artificial intelligence do not go together, and they do not describe what's going on. These are expert systems that are designed to do specific tasks with as much efficiency as possible. And it's just got the biggest database. It's not a large language model. It's a large media model that's really being scoured. And so the idea of this prompt scripting, which is basically the questioning, what's your question, is nothing more than pattern recognition put in and designed with guardrails into something known as natural language processing, which then constructs that and distributes it over a neural network into thousands and thousands of databases to whatever those databases have been identified and indexed to go search for. So that's all it does. It's very good at it. And there is a lot of great stuff that's being done with these tools because they've gotten to the point to where the data that's available and to be able to interrogate that data, because that's all these things are. They're data interrogators. And that really they should be assisted interrogators as opposed to artificial intelligence, because there is no intelligence. There is no sentience of being able to cobble together different concepts and come up with something new. It has to be fed that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And so we're going to circle back because there's a response to that. And I'm going to circle back. Hold on for a second. Okay. I want to make sure I get back to it. Is one of the things that I feel is going on is the buzz around artificial intelligence and its future attracts investors and money. And now it's become a huge money grab. And look at what has happened to NVIDIA. Right? Now I love NVIDIA. I've got NVIDIA video processing on all of my computers. I've got 6 NVIDIA cards.
Been a loyal customer for decades. I love this stuff.
Yeah, great stuff, right? And now look what it's done to that. And it seems that there isn't any oversight into how these tools are going to continue to be developed and for what purpose. That's the part around AI that scares me, because there's a lot of really good people that are behind it. They don't have bad intentions. And I firmly believe that. I really do. I'm not naive, but there's always a bad actor. Right. Well, and taking advantage of this. And we don't have any regulation right now.
Well, that part of that is because of the newness of it. But the biggest issue, first of all, I've been calling the AI wars for the last 2 years. And this is, I think we're about to see the final collapse, a la the .com bomb at the turn of the millennium. Okay. And I think the reason for that is that the model that they're using to go after these expert systems and design them with as much targeted efficiency at data interrogation and returning a result that's based on the question. That's all it is. That's all it can do. But the ability to do that with a wide range of available data has caused a whole bunch of, we've not only got FUD, we've got hype, hyperbole, sex, sizzle, and muss and fuss all around this. Sure. And everybody's, running to it just like they did back at the turn of the millennium with the .bomb. They're throwing tons of cash at it because they think they see something there, which I think is what will be what they think they see, but not how they see it. The idea of having a personal agent, right, that you can custom tailor to go get the data that you want based on the guardrails that you define is going to be where AI will end up. There won't be a giant open AI, even Grok, which is amazing. And most of the tools out there are just doing some amazing stuff. But there can't be a centralized AI because of the constraints of the data that it's been focused at, which brings up the second big part of the collapse, in my opinion, in my current working assumption, is that the content issues of AI data interrogation is where all of the regulation that you're talking about, the laws, the restrictions. We've already got a half a dozen or more lawsuits from the Times, I think, Wall Street Journal, a few others on ChatGPT, on OpenAI, because the content that the AI is returning is coming from their copyrighted material.
And it's intellectual property stuff. I've
exactly.
read there's another lawsuit today was just introduced. Well, okay, so I get that, and it helps me relax. But you know what helped me relax a little bit more is this. A couple of weeks ago, this little press release came out. I reported on it, and for some reason it was ignored. And I think that the reason why it was ignored by the media is because right now this is capitalism at its finest, right? This is a money machine. Nobody wants to mess with it. So I get that. But this was the press release. The press release was, and it was published, it was peer reviewed, it's in a journal, that ChatGPT-4, the latest version of it, couldn't solve a common riddle. Now, think about just the implications of that for a second. Now, it's a riddle that you and I, or a kid, would go, okay, yeah, that's easy, right? Because we can think through it and think around it. ChatGPT-4, its reply to this riddle, I don't have the riddle in front of me, but it's just really simple thing, grade school riddle. With the information provided, it is impossible to answer this question. And I'm like, what? That's your answer? And that's exactly to your point, isn't it? It's gathering information from known databases, but it can't think for itself. Something very simple.
And that's an excellent point, and kind of a segue into the whole concept of what is thinking, right? Thinking is something that occurs with a sentient awareness of the thoughts to be thought about. The things that your senses and your experience engage with and encounter. And all of a sudden you have something with which to think about.
Right. That's such a great, let me tell you why that's a brilliant point, in my opinion. And I'm a doofus. But let me tell you why that is so brilliant. AI, through a data set, can say that my favorite color is blue because they went on and scrubbed, right? Okay. All right. Okay. But they don't know why. And maybe it's because when I was a kid, my neighbor had a blue Corvette, and I would go over and touch the car, and I had this scent, this thing come over me. And that's the reason why. But AI would never know that. Right. And that implementation, that activation of AI will never be there. Will it? Is it possible to get consciousness or that part of emotion into ones and zeros?
In my opinion, and again, my current working assumption, and I've had this for a long time, the idea of what we consider the expression of consciousness only occurs in what we also observe as organic life. things that are organic, not inorganic. Okay. And there's varying levels and actually varying degrees of this consciousness. And I've got this in the Informatica presentation when we get to that. But the idea is that we exist as a frequency stamp of the infinite field of frequencies that is how energy expresses itself. And energy is the result of consciousness. So consciousness is what everything comes from. It's where everything starts and ends. And that's all we know. We don't know anything else. And that's all based on just pure, personal, experiential speculation. That's the only thing that we all have. Whether we want to believe in a philosophy or a theology or some kind of science or mysticism or mystery schools or whatever you want to come up with. Those are just packages of somebody else's speculation of reality.
Do you have to program in to the AI heroin addiction and your girlfriend leaving you?
How do you
to write a song like Needle in the Hay? Right.
So here's the question back to you. I got cues for yous on that, right? So in order to program something, what does it take? It takes a person, takes some knowledge, takes some computer hardware, some electricity, some Red Bull, whatever it is, right? It takes all those elements to program a statement of what you just called or just described as reasoning. Because when you reason, you have all these other memories, all these other data points, all these what Sheldrake refers to as the morphogenesis or the morphic fields, right? So all of that engages while you are experiencing something, it's known as what we call consciousness, which has a shitload of definitions, but there is no agreed to consensus of anything, and consensus is bullshit anyway. And back to the point you were making earlier about the peer-reviewed shit, you know that over 60% of the peer-reviewed papers in the published journals have been found they had to take them out because they couldn't be reproducible. Peer-reviewed, signed off by people of their friends in their little circle, but they couldn't be reproduced, so they had to take them out. And that is across all science disciplines. So that's a precursor to the concept that everything's broken, the information is wrong, and we're going through and about to realize a renaissance that I'm calling the knowledge apocalypse. An apocalypse in the term of the revealing, the original definition of the word. So we're seeing a knowledge reveal happening now. So when we have these conscious experiences and interactions, it's just based on the fact that we're interacting with another set of frequencies that's within the infinite field that is energy that makes up what we do and experience. So none of this stuff can be programmed in all sciences, all disciplines. Consciousness is known as the hard problem. Why? Because as soon as you introduce an observer into whatever it is that you're trying to test and hypothesize and theorize on, that it changes the entire process. It changes the information. Known as the observer effect, more classically referred to as Schrodinger's cat, right?
Right.
You don't know until you observe. Well, that's why quantum computing is also basically what they're putting out now, using the physics that we have. They can't do what they say they're doing because it's still using the materium. It's using it. It's completely devoid of anything that has any relationship, knowledge, or even awareness of the ethereum, which is where all the invisible frequencies are, right? So in quantum computing, have you ever seen a quantum computer, a picture of one?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
I mean, they're like vaults, right? they're thick walls, and they've got everything sealed off, and they've even got it to the point that when they fire off a quantum calculation, that has to be random and nobody can know when it does it
That
of the observer effect.
That's right. Here's the crazy part. When we talk, and there's a lot of crazy when it comes to quantum computers and qubits, but here's the crazy part, that the things that allow a quantum computer to run are the stuff that our community, our tinfoil hat woo-woo science fiction community, would dream about and talk about and wonder about. All of those things are now tied into a quantum computer, and it is the science fiction that has ever been presented. A quantum computer operates by entangling in another parallel world or dimension with another particle. That's how it runs. And they want us to just go, oh, okay, all right, that's fine, right? They don't even understand. They don't know.
They're looking. One of my continued realizations as I observe all these different science disciplines and all these different things that are going on is that everybody's looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place for the wrong reason. I mean, and a perfect example of that, in my opinion, is Graham Hancock. And in a very specific field, right? You know, he's been making the circuit on all the shows this last week because he's got Ancient Apocalypse season 2 has just been released on Netflix. And here's a guy who takes his own mind, his own curiosity, his own field of imagination, and he wants to go look at shit. What does he do? He goes and he does a pretty damn good job at looking at shit. His hypothesis and his theories and all of that are accurate, I don't know. It's everybody's guess, but at least he's not only being transparent in that he's saying, hey, this is what I'm speculating. And what he's doing at a minimum is he's asking and raising a bunch of questions. And questioning is one of the things that has been eliminated from the society, going back to your original opening statement, that is causing what we're seeing as chaos among all of the carbon units. Because questioning the idea that the melding of the mind with parasitic bullshit that's been carefully crafted and curated and put into the narrative of the social discourse has caused a bunch of mental illness. And so we're seeing the expression of that mental illness in little pockets all over the place, because I don't think that we're seeing that what we're being presented as the volume of the disruption and all of the little crap that's going on all over the place. I think that's being amplified to more than it actually is, because that's one of the things that we've typically referred to as a legacy media. I call them mockingbird media. And, now they're basically just nothing but propaganda media. So you have to sort through information, and I'm sorry, that's a whole different rabbit hole.
No. We're going to go down that rabbit hole, and I'll tell you why this needs to be talked about. Here you have a situation, going back to Schrodinger, that is now accepted. I'm going to use the word dogma too as well. You already used it, but that's such a good word. That you can change the state of matter by looking at it. Now, if that isn't crazy, right? But this is accepted in the hard sciences, right? You can change the state of matter by looking at it. But ghosts aren't real. Right? It's just like, wait. Consciousness, no, we can't talk about that. But if you look at something, you can make it go whack. It's like, I don't get it. It's the same conversation. Why aren't we allowed to discuss consciousness? Why aren't we allowed to question everything around us and question what we have been taught? Why? When did that rule get established that we aren't allowed to do that? And it's a very confusing thing.
Well, I think that it's been going on for millennia, actually, in all types of different civilizations. And this goes back to something our mutual friend Jeff Harmon and I have talked about many times, about the astrological and astronomical cycles. There are cycles within cycles. That's just the way energy manifests itself. And you can call it whatever you want, how it comes about, however you want. But no, there's no doubt that that's what we see. We see patterns. We see recognition in regular cycles. We're finishing, in my opinion, and this is supported by a number of different folks that are doing the same kind of research. We're ending a 400-year cycle that started approximately in around 1700. Right then was what was referred to as, or is referred to as, the Age of Enlightenment. Now, this is where Descartes and Cartesian dualism started happening, to right to your point about, if you can't see it, you can't measure it, it ain't real, right? Well, that's what Cartesian dualism was about. Descartes, because Newton and all these guys were going, wait, look at all this math shit we got figured out. This is some complicated, cool shit. This must be the mind of God, right? So math has always been kind of attributed to that kind of realm. If you can understand the complexities of all these symbols, and which is nothing more than it's like shorthand for language, because behind each one of those symbols there's a word or a set of words that explains what that symbol means: add, subtract, group, whatever. So once they thought that they had this whole, wow, we got math, we know the mind of God, that means that everything in the materium, the physical world we see, we can delineate, we can assign and ascribe math to it to define it. But all that other shit, the angels, the demons, the gods, the mind of man, we'll give that stuff to the church. And that's the delineation of Cartesian dualism. That's when that's how we ended up where we are today with the materialism model, which in physics, everything it's billiard balls, right? It's shit crashing at each other. The nonsense they're doing over at CERN. I mean, they think that because if they get the smallest particles they can and crack them, that they're going to eventually find God in there somewhere. And it's like, no, you're in a rabbit hole that is never ending. You will be there till the end of time, trying to find that smallest one and create that explosion, that realization of consciousness out of the materium, because that's not how it works. And it's odd, to your other point, how in quantum mechanics, they have finally realized that, hey, everything's a wave. Everything's moving. There is nothing static. A snapshot of an atom is an instance of that energy wave as it's waving. That's just a snapshot. And that's what AI has in its database. It's just got the snapshot. It has no antecedent or predecedent. Either way, it just knows that snapshot. It's static.
The idea let's stay right. Yes. Yeah. No, we're going to stay right here. Okay. Because if we look, okay, string theory in a very general sense, you've got guitars hanging behind you. I've got guitars hanging behind me.
That's my string theory.
Yeah, right. So string theory is this. This is a simplified version of it, but at the very smallest of the small, there are strings that vibrate, and what frequency they vibrate at determines what they are going to do and be. Okay? All right. Mm-hmm. Now, I like that because I understand that. Mm-hmm. I can relate. It's no different than a violin or a guitar. It's the same principle. Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about breaking apart the smallest of particles and inside of atoms, inside of quarks, and just getting smaller and smaller and getting to this point of strings vibrating. Now, wait a minute. And that's supposed to be that's the beginning of everything. Mm-hmm. What are the strings made of? Right? It's a string of something. So that means there is something smaller. So how small does small get? And is it a situation where every number can be cut in half? Right? And so is the smallest of the small not the smallest of the small? Does it continue to the infinite? That's the part of where taking all of this apart and string theory and these ideas of the quantum, it's a good application of science for sure, but I don't think that there's an end to it, and that gets divine to me. There's something spiritual that starts to get involved.
I completely agree with what you're saying, but I would also say this, going back to the point I made earlier about looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place for the wrong reason. Strings are, in fact, there's a huge shit storm going on in the string theory community right now. And there's a number of people that are going, it's about time that thing goes away, because it just can't be supported by anything else. It requires too many things that have not been observed, just calculated, and calculations are nothing more than speculation of men, math, models, and machines. That's all they are, right? So the problem with string theory is that it's like taking a snapshot of the frequency fields that we inhabit. Frequencies wave and they vibrate just like strings, but there is no end to them. So if you try to say, well, I'm surrounded by strings, it's like, no, I'm surrounded by frequencies.
Right.
I'm surrounded by the waves and the vibration, and I am manifested and engaged with the infinite frequency field using my unique frequency stamp from consciousness, which is where everything comes from. So we are all frequency stamps of consciousness. Back in the turn of the millennium, when we had the election and the whole thing down in Florida and the dangling chads. I started out as a 1701 UNIVAC key punch service tech. So I used to service all those punch cards.
Did you say UNIVAC?
UNIVAC, baby.
You dropped UNIVAC on this show. Well played, Robert. Wow.
So the dangling chads. Remember the dangling chads were chads that just didn't come out of the punch card, right? So for a while, I used that as an example or as an allegory to what we are in consciousness. Consciousness creates everything. We can't explain it. We can experience it. It has a lot of nature and habits and characteristics, attributes. And we all seem to experience a common consciousness band. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. Outside of that band, there's a whole nother realm of frequencies, because consciousness, here's the characteristics of consciousness from my perspective. It exists. It seems to be constantly in motion. It seems to be always something happening next. And I was part of the whole New Age thing in the 90s and, finding the guru within you, connecting to the one and being in the now and all that. And I swam through that trying to find something to hold on to, but just like the religious stuff that I've been through, the theologies, I couldn't find anything to hold on to long enough to go, I need to go find something else. So consciousness expresses itself in motion. We are never in the now. We are always in the next. The now is a frequency stamp of your experience that is now in the infinite field of frequencies. This is where memories are stored. Right?
It's gone.
But it still has its unique frequency signature.
Correct.
That's why things like remote viewing and psychic abilities and being able to look in not only the whole concept of non-local consciousness should take everybody and make them go, I need to go learn more about that. Because that's a natural, innate capability of the psychic experience that manifests from consciousness, which we are the result of. So what does consciousness do? It seems to create everything, seems to be always in motion. There's always seems to be more of it. It seems to be in search or have a peccadillo and a preference for novelty, something new. There's always new. There's always more of it. Well, how does it express this motion and this creation and this search, if you will, for novelty? It does it through energy. What energy? Well, yeah, everything that we all know and think about all the time and use in order for us to be from the now to the next requires energy. Well, energy is manifested in a boatload of ways that we barely even understand. Right now, there is no definition for electricity. There's no agreed, we know how to harness it, we know how to make it, we know how to move it, we know how to use it. And you can cook a man's meal with it, and you can also cook the man. But we don't have a definition of electricity.
Anything in that category, we don't know shit. We don't. Gravity,
right?
Don't know.
Gravity's bullshit. It's electromagnetism at a minimum.
Don't know. Dark matter, dark energy.
That's all made up shit to explain the observation that wasn't in the calculation.
It makes the calculation work. That's why it's there.
And then they find all this new shit and they go, oh shit, calculation was wrong.
Right. But I find that crazy when you look at the weak and strong fields. Mm-hmm. You look at the gravity that binds atoms, the gravity that binds our feet to this planet, the gravity that binds us to the sun, the star system, out from that into the Milky Way, right? Mm-hmm. And holding the galaxy together. All of these things are pushing and pulling. They're all, well, it's opposite. It's gravity part 2. Oh, that's old gravity. This is new gravity. And now we've got something that is pushing the galaxies apart. And now we've got this thing but then it's wait a minute. They honestly, they can see things happening. We can drop a bowling ball and watch it hit the ground. Mm-hmm. We just don't know why. Well, it's caused by mass. Well, how does that explain everything else? And how does that explain something pushing? You've got mass behind it, right? There's mass. The whole thing is a mess, Robert. Why is it that nobody wants to go back and take a look at consciousness to see if that is the connection? What's holding everybody back?
Well, in the mainstream, which is where all the academic institutions, which are completely broken and corrupt, the system that we refer to as education is actually schooling. It's not education. And it's run by people who hold esteemed positions that have been lauded and gifted the black robes and the plaques with the stamps and the shit as being the authority on said subject. Okay. Every discipline I've dove into, at least 50% of it is questionable when I look at it and go, I don't know what's going on here. The other 50% is missing of the information that I've come across that should be in that stack. To say nothing of the lack of interdisciplinary. I mean, archaeologists and geologists do not work together. They should, right? No. But the whole model of our sciences is wrong. It's based on this gritology, this billiard ball model of crash and shit. That has produced some of the great stuff that we've gotten in the last 100 years in our technology. Doing what we're doing now has helped produce those calculations, and that view of the materium has turned out pretty good. We got some good shit out of it. But if we're going to expand beyond that and be able to have the communication with our, dare I say it, cosmic cousins that are on their way, if not already here, which I think they have been for a long time, that consciousness breakthrough is what I'm calling the knowledge apocalypse is all about. We're coming to a realization. We've looked at everything and we've seen that, there's something going on here and it's getting revealed. Oh shit, what's going on here? Well, that great reveal is causing a great rethink, because now we're seeing that most of the shit, if not all of it, our history is completely whacked. But 90+% of everything that we've thought about, been taught about, been told to do and sold to is bullshit. It's wrong and it's broken. And it's not hard to see. I think it's one of the reasons in your opening statement about the collapse of the chaos of civilization that we see going on around us. I think it's a natural thing. I think it's extremely important. And going back to the 400-year cycle I was talking about, we're at the end of a 400-year cycle. that energy, the folks that have been riding that wave of energy, those frequencies and those vibrations, not billiard balls, not strings, and just on quanta means the smallest thing. Well, you're already starting with the wrong word, looking for the wrong thing for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I get wound up just like you were just, why isn't this stuff being talked about? The problem is that there's a lot of siloed, established, we're seeing it in spades in the politics. It's not the parties, it's the career bureaucrats and that structure, the deep state, the gray state, whatever might be in there. It's all held together with bubblegum, baling wire, and duct tape. Because as you said earlier on the internet, the systems that are currently in play that administer the global society were not designed for what they're experiencing. They can't handle it. This is why AI, or more importantly, or specifically expert systems being applied to system process improvement, is going to be a critical technology on the other side of the dumpster fires, train wrecks, and shitstorms that we're all trying to avoid right now. But in order to get there, it has to be a self-organizing collective of consciousness, meaning the awareness of the fact that shit's broke, the awareness that there are solutions, there are new ways, the new technology that's coming out. I'm working on one of my books called The Future 3, and that's communication, free energy, and water. You can get all three of those right now off the development bench in the palm of your hand, and it would transform the entire planet. It would also cause a massive amount of disruption. So you've got to do a controlled rollout of those kinds of technologies. But the liberation of the self and the sovereignty of the self being captured on a blockchain model, which is a whole nother discussion, but the blockchain technology is what will, in my opinion, unless something else comes along, will be the key catalyst to the sovereignty of self, being able to be, not only have all of your assets digitized, which we've already got it now. People just don't realize that all the shit you do is scattered across a couple of dozen systems, and God help you if you forget your password to go in there and get your stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. So all of that is intermediated bullshit, and it's in the way, and it's clogging the system, creating all kinds of friction and inefficiency. The technology to fix all that, and dare I say, I think the people to help usher in and make that fix are here now.
Well, how do you make the transition, though? I mean, because of all of the duct tape and baling wire that you talk about, that's been built up. That pile, that junkyard, has been going on for decades.
Yes.
And the software behind, when you look at, I don't want to segue off of this, but when you look at the banking model, the mortgage model, and the basic infrastructure of the internet, that's all very simplified stuff that has had one update onto another,
one patch onto another.
Right. Of which there are trillions of them now.
Yes.
Right. And that's the finger in the dike. Right. That's like the classic example of that.
Yes.
And when it comes undone, it's going to come undone in a big way. So how do you transition off of that into a more simplified internet, and an internet of things that is smoother running? And this is the thing. There is no mortgage banking internet czar, right? There is no infrastructure, our electrical grid, our water, street lights, right? Airplanes, shipping logistics with boats on the water, GPS, all of it. Just what is going on just with this, right? Just with it. There's no leadership. There's no committee. No. There isn't anything there. There isn't anything in place.
Well, exactly. And I think that's a good thing, because the organic nature of innovation and transformative disruption and change always comes organically.
Well, so you're saying it has to blow up so we know what the blow up will look like, and we know
Well,
what to fix?
I think there will be some of that, definitely be some blow up, but I referenced self-organizing collectives earlier. What I think we're going to see, and it is by virtue of the technology you and I are using now, and as it transforms, I think what we're going to see is a bifurcation from the old system into new systems that will emerge from these self-organizing collectives. People who take advantage of the technology and build their own little group. And then that technology, that blockchain, or it's really, it should be referred to as tokenization. So everything is going to be tokenized. That's what all the cryptos are based on, is a blockchain. The only reason they work and can function is because of the blockchain. So the entire monetary system will change because these self-organizing collectives will adopt this new technology. And in order for others who want to get in and work with them, they're going to have to adopt that technology. There will be, I think, a combination of some big collapses, but there will be the speed with which replacements will pop up, I think, will blow people's minds.
You mentioned our friends up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's my Pandora's box, the scientific community's Pandora's box. All right,
mm-hmm.
This is their Pandora's box. ET comes down. All right, comes down, steps down, starts yapping, and the community, the world community, wants to communicate with algorithms and math, right? The frequency of hydrogen. Let's start there, right? Or whatever it may be. And then ET comes back and says, hold on a minute. Hold on. We gave up on math 1 million years ago.
Yeah, slow your roll. We got something new to show you.
Yeah, it's called consciousness. This is what runs the universe. That's the scientific. That's the science Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's our next stage in evolution. We've gone, I hate to say it, but we've gone about as tiny and as fast as we are pushing electro EM. We are pushing the foundations of transistors and everything else to its breaking point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Atom thick layers. Well, it's kind of hard to get thinner than that, right?
Well,
you understand what I'm saying? What's the next stage?
Well, and I think going back to the, we were talking about the New Age and all that stuff, that movement back in the 80s and 90s that I was definitely a part of. And, the whole thing, if you got to be in the now, you got to connect with the one. It's like, well, the now is not. You're always in the next. So that's a movement forward in from being stuck in a place that they try to keep you. Be in the now. There's more than going on than just the now. The now is actually gone now. I'm in the next. So just that minor framework shift releases a whole bunch of opportunity to explore and to go and seek and think about what's going on. So the idea that once we realize that we are at a point where it's not, and this goes back again to this New Age stuff, that everybody's going into this higher dimension, this fifth dimensional reality, the multiverse, the multi this, the omni that, and all this other stuff. Those are just more speculation of people trying to define some kind of experience they've had. And if you really want to trip, talk to somebody about their experience after ayahuasca or psilocybin and listen to what they have to say about their encounters. Okay. Where does that come from? Whole nother idea of psychology and the idea of the mentalism of the mind. The mind is not in the brain. The brain is the nervous organ of the biological meat suit we inhabit, and it animates it as we navigate the reality we inhabit. The mind is the consciousness, the frequency stamp, the signature of you that interacts and interfaces with the brain to animate and express itself through the materium. It's that simple to me. It's
Well,
not, there's no magic.
Can the world handle that kind of message from ET? Right? You've got to move on. This stuff is great. Guitars are great. You know what? You want me to tell you the proof of it?
Yeah.
Modeling guitar amps.
Oh.
That's the end of. And you know what's funny about that? Here's what's funny about that. I remember dabbling into it, right? Dipping my toe into it. I still have some stuff. I have some modeling stuff, but you experience the modeling amps. There's a slight delay there, right? Between what you pick and what you hear. Yeah. There and it's good, but it's not perfect. Anyway, and then you turn around, get acclimated to that for 6 months or a year, and then just plug straight into a Marshall. Right? It's like, well, we messed that one up, right? But that's an example of that. Yes. Where the analog way of doing things, right, and getting the clutter back out of the way is what we need to do, and that answer is the next evolution. We've taken technology as far as we can, like modeling amps. We took it as far as we can. The next step in evolution is going au naturel and figuring out who we are, what consciousness is, and what is the meaning of everything. And I think that's where we are. But can we handle that?
Well, I think that we can, because we're supposed to. I think that it is a part of the experience that we're having as energetic beings having a physical experience, okay, we've been able to at least kind of uncover some cycles. There seems to have been, as I was referencing Hancock earlier, there seems to be at least one or maybe 3 or 4 advanced prior civilizations. I don't necessarily say advanced, but I think that they were in a lot of aspects. Edgar Casey's read on the Atlanteans, on Atlantis and the two-eyed stone, and how that was used to power everything. That's geometry. That's sacred geometry technology. Frequency shift. We're currently being bombarded by a galactic sheet of energy coming from the center of the galaxy. And that is causing a significant shift in just the physical realm that we inhabit, let alone the conscious frequency realm that we don't see, but clearly exists. Otherwise, again, we wouldn't be doing this or having this conversation in this shared reality. So now I think that the change, and I'm going to go ahead and toss you into this category, Jimmy, because I think you are. A number of us that are here now chose to be here now for this transition, for this transformation, as a part of the enabling energetic tribe vibe to move everything through this frequency shift that we're encountering. There's a whole bunch of cycles, again, Jeff Harmon, you go through any of the charts and some of the history that he lays down on the astronomy and the astrology, and it's mesmerizing. I've been using him for 10 years, just for my own personal charts and reads. When you see those cycles.
Jeff is incredible. Jeff is incredible. Well, okay. So then when we look at, we're going to have to take a break here in a second, and I'll set this up for when we come back. I'm not a Luddite. I love technology. I never said I'd have a smart home. I've now got the smartest of smart homes. And you know what?
It's nice, isn't it?
Man, I'll be laying in bed one in the morning, and I'm like, man, let's turn on the AC, and pick up my phone.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not getting up and going downstairs and turning that thing on. I'm doing it from the bed. Anyway.
Well, and to that point, one of my thing where it crosses the line, I think that kind of tech, and I mean, these universal uniblabs that we carry around are just magic. You have the world in your pocket.
I love it.
I draw the line where if I'm in the store and all of a sudden my refrigerator calls my phone and says, hey, you forgot the milk, go back 2 aisles. That's too far. That's invasive. I don't want that kind of tech, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. So I just to that point. If you come to my house for a dinner party, and I would love to have you over, but when you come to my house for a dinner party, I've got a nice dining room. I've got a nice cooking. It's set up to hang out with my friends. My environment here, you can see that it's a it's a fun place. It's a fun place. I've drooled over
some of those dinners.
Yeah. But you sit down at my table, phones down. Do not. I'm the only one that's allowed to have a phone at the table because I'm taking pictures. But I'm serious about that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a time and place for it. So anyway, I'm not a Luddite. I enjoy technology. And when I look at the James Webb Space Telescope and our ability, the Atacama Desert, and look at what's going on in Chile and radio telescopes and the large array in New Mexico and Northern California, the things that we have to peer out in exoplanets and the test system and every that technology is incredible. To think that we can look at light years away the atmosphere of a planet, right? That's crazy. Now, about 2 weeks ago, Simon Holland, who's great, he's a great TV host. He does the science stuff for NASA. And he's a great film. I've enjoyed his work for years. He comes out 2 weeks ago, and you know where I'm going with this, and he says, two groups are fighting, and one of them is Zuckerberg's, right, group, and Breakthrough Listen with Avi Loeb and everybody that's involved with that, and and another group, an unnamed group, are about to announce contact, that we've made contact. Now, not really saying what form it is, but it appears that we have got an artificial signal that has been received, and that announcement is about to happen. It's Jodie Foster and contact.
Yeah,
right?
contact.
What do you make of that? And do you think that an announcement like this is something that the planet can handle, or are we just expecting this and it was going to happen sooner or later?
Well, the particular thing that you're talking about, in my opinion, is another act in the multiple movies in the cinema that's going on. So it's multiple movies on one screen. They're announcing that they've had this contact, just like the one that was it back in 85 or 6. They had the wow signal that they got.
That was in the 70s.
My whole beef with what I lovingly refer to as ufology.
You're talking about my people, man. You're talking about
brother.
I'm
there, but I think that it's reached a level of foolishness that is, and it's not just in ufology or UFOs. It's also the paranormal and cryptids and all these other anomalous things that are always presented with allegorical information. You know, if somebody saw this, witness of that, and maybe a video or picture too. In fact, I got a video that I can show you with later. I'd like to get your opinion on, because I thought, well, this is one of the best ones I've ever seen. But my point is this: they keep going on about disclosure. What does disclosure mean? Disclosure basically is not just that there's something flying in the air and it ain't ours, but it's we're not alone. And it's like, well, duh. I mean, we've known that for millennia. Every record of every civilization that we've ever encountered and deciphered and translated has the same story. Somebody from up there came down here. They showed us stuff. They told us stuff. They taught us stuff. And hell, they might even have screwed with us some stuff. Every mythos, every cosmology has the same story. And there's all kinds of encounters that have been documented during all of the millennia that we at least know of. So it's not disclosure. Yeah, of course we're not alone. It's been that way. All civilizations thought that before we came along, and Descartes sliced and diced the reality we inhabit and tossed it into this big bin of billiard balls. It's like, no, that's you just lost sight of reality. Reality is in the unseen. So to me, And one of I had Brian Singh on from the Full Disclosure Now conference on my show, The Nexus. And I told him, I said, Brian, to me, look, it's not disclosure, it's exposure. And he goes, "Ooh, it makes me think like, some guy in a trench coat." It's like, well, okay, I can see that, but it's really, that's the correct term, in my opinion. It's exposing the fact that they have known about this shit and used this shit and kept all the good stuff from the kids on the playground for decades. It's exposing that. Love Richard Dolan. I've had Michael Schratt on as well. The guys, Stephen Greer's, I'd like to get your opinion on his project. What is it? The Project Disclosure Intelligence Archive. I don't know if you've seen that, but that seems to be one of the biggest databases of actual data that you can go in and mine. They're dropping some AI in and doing some things in the future, but it's exposure. It's not disclosure. Exposing the fact that these people have kept this stuff from everybody else. We could have had a totally different world than we're living in now had they been more friendly and more sharing with the rest of the children. We would not have the world we're in now. We would not have the broken systems. We would have less corruption and more efficiency. We'd have more productivity, more positivity, and less chaos and crap.
Well, is that because the idea and laws of control, which started getting written 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, you got to control the masses.
Yep.
That style of governance and keeping control of the masses has never gone away. And so if you do that type of exposure, you're letting go part of that control, if not all of it. And that's the precious thing that they don't, that's
they've got nothing. They've got nothing left. Part of the problem I see in the ufology community is that they don't realize they've already won. They're fighting against, it seems like there's more consternation and conflict amongst themselves. And I'm kind of going, well, look, nobody's got the definitive proof. There's all kinds of pieces. I think that metamaterial that Hal Puthoff has is probably something that we can get more data on. But they've had this shit in warehouses and underground and deep bunkers and everything else for decades. The relationship with our cosmic cousins has been in place for at least in the modern time for decades, long before even Roswell and Cape Girardeau.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so to me, it's exposing the fact that they were bad actors. They held on to this shit. They kept to themselves. They created a whole bunch of, whether you've got a breakaway civilization or a secret space program, colonies on Mars and the moon. I think the moon is artificial. It's inhabited. I think the second moon that's supposed to be doing a little Airbnb or space B&B around the planet for a couple of months, maybe a shift change. I don't know, on the moon. Throw that out there, but it's exposure. So the exposure that's going to happen. They can't control the final release. The internet itself, while it has been unleashed and caused a lot of chaos, it's also caused a lot of sleuthing. And it's given this rise of these amateur citizen researchers and scientists and investigators. And those guys are the ones turning up the real stuff. And they've been doing it because that's the only way you can get to the information is you got to go find it yourself. You got to go look, you got to go poke around. If you don't, then all you have to work with is whatever you consume from the propaganda state data feed. You have to do things like you're doing and what I'm doing with our own shows. We are communicating information that we have encountered in our experience and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Because it's all speculation at the end, right, Jimmy?
Well, is that part of the problem for the man? Where until recently, and when I say recently, until the last 20 years, right, since 1995, 94, all information was controlled, right? All of it. Every lab from, let's go back to the pharaohs, let's go back to Mesopotamia, right?
Well, and being able to be literate was the biggest chokehold on the civilization. If you
right
couldn't
by
read
the
it, you
NAS.
didn't know what the fuck. You just had to listen to what somebody said.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that control doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
It simply doesn't. That control's over, and
Right.
that includes the publishing of materials, music, TV, film, documentaries, websites, books.
Yeah.
Right? You don't
Yeah.
have to go to a pub. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but most people don't understand because of the generational gap that we're in right now.
Right.
But there was a time, everybody, when you had to go to a publisher and get denied. Right? There was a time when you had to go to a radio station and get denied as talent, where you had to go to a movie studio and get denied an audition. You don't have to do if you want to do a TV show, go and make it. Put it on the man doesn't have control anymore. They've lost complete control, and now knowledge is shared in nanoseconds to the entire planet. It's an incredible time.
That's why I call it the knowledge apocalypse. We are seeing the great reveal of all the stuff that we thought was one thing and turns out to be something completely different. We're having the ability to actually, and this is what Musk and a lot of very successful people do, and it's a very important mental skill, and it's called first principles thinking. And what I refer to it as the nut of the nugget. If you're looking at something and you're trying to understand what it is, you've got to get rid of all the wrappers and sans all the crap that people have put on it and colored it with and given it all its new distinctions. And you got to go right to the core of it and examine that and then come out. Because part of the problem is the majority of our knowledge, probably 80-90% of it, has been packaged and purposely crafted, curated, and put together for the consumption to keep people from knowing the truth.
What I ended up doing, I'll keep this very brief. In 2008, when the mortgage thing happened, it affected all of broadcast, all of commercials. Detroit, nobody had, it was a bad situation with the financial markets, and people in media and all of the legacy media, all the staffs were being cut back. And I was out looking for a gig in radio, and I had all these doors open. I had plans, and all of a sudden that happened, and all of the job offers that I had were withdrawn. Right. So I just had this idea, and you can look it up. This is fact. I had this idea. Let's create an internet radio station. Now, at that time, YouTube was like 6 months old. Podcasting wasn't a word for another 10 years. Right. Live streaming, it didn't exist. So I went and I got HTML for dummies. I'm not making this up. Okay. And I thought to myself, I produced records. I know audio. I know the chain. I know what's going on. I understand this. I have all the gear. I have everything. I've got to figure out a way to make this happen live. So I started programming it. But anyway, after about 6 months, and I'm on my coffee table, man, right? My coffee table in my living room, and my eyes are red, and I've written so much code. And then one day it worked. I spoke into the microphone and I heard it come out of the speakers. And it was like, what? And so I started jimmychurchradio.com in like January of 2008. Go and look it up. You can go to the Internet Wayback Machine and go and look at my original website, which was one page. It didn't even have page. No, it was just a landing page. And I was able to make that, and it was like click on listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I could only and I never figured out why, Robert. I could only broadcast live for 9 minutes and 59 seconds. And then it would stop, right? So I would go and start another, and so to do a 1 hour show, I would have to do 6 10-minute blocks, and that's what I would do. I would broadcast 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
but I figured it out, and that's the beauty of technology and trying to do something that has never been done before. Now, I'm not saying I was the first or I invented it, but when I did it, nobody had done it. It was probably already being worked on, I'm sure, but I just figured out a way to, and I don't even know what I did. And I remember this. I never changed any code. I went and copied, right?
Yeah.
Put that his CD. I burned his CD and was like, man, that's it. That's the holy grail right there. And it's backed up in case I mess it up. But yeah, 2008.
Well, the thing you just stirred a bunch in me. I built my studio in 98 and 99, and I designed it as a hybrid analog digital studio. So I had a live room. It was all analog. It had all of the headphones had individual mixes, did all the lights and all that stuff. Went to a 32 channel Soundcraft Ghost because I love those British preamps.
I had a Ghost.
Oh.
I had a 32 by 8 by 2 Ghost.
Yeah. So when we did those first CDs that we released in 99, and the only reason I became a label is I built the studio because I cashed out of my tech thing, and I said, I'm taking a sabbatical. I'm building a recording studio, and then I put a yacht on the lake, and I was 30 minutes door to dock, and I just sat in that studio and started making music. Well, the next thing I knew a bunch of people in Atlanta and some artists, and they'd come over and we kind of jam, and they said, well, I'd like to make an album. I was like, oh shit, I built it to do my stuff. But because of my tech and management stuff, I said, well, okay, I'll go ahead and produce some other people. Next thing you know, I'm a label at AFM, the American Federation for Independent Music. You remember that group? They had their annual conference in downtown Atlanta at the Westin. So we took 2 of our CDs that we had, there were 2 groups that we were working with, made CDs out of them, and we pressed them. We had 386 computers with 8 gig of RAM. And in order to do the processing, doing the WAV files to get them to write to the CD, we had to hang external drives off of that one tower. And it took all night to render one CD. That was just under an hour. So it was crazy.
The other day, all right, I remember when Rudy Sarzo and I put together our first Pro Tools studio. It was a Session 8 studio.
I use Sonar in mine.
Sonar.
Yeah.
I use Audition now. Anyway, we bought a Dallas drives. 1 gig. 1 gigabyte Dallas drives. $2,500. And we thought we were the shit, right? Check this out. I installed this the other day. It's so new, it still has I'll peel it. There it is, right? 2 terabytes. 2 terabyte SSD, right? 2 terabyte SSD. $99. 2 terabyte SSD. And I'm bragging about it now. Next year, 20 terabyte SSD, $29.95. Right?
Next year you'll have it as a dot on your head that you can tap and access anytime you want. And
this is
and to your point about being kind of maybe ahead or at some of the cutting edge of when some of this transformation was going on. It's like that's what I was experiencing building my studio. But I mean, hats off to Wayne and Garth. Are you kidding me? Broadcasting from their basement back in the 80s?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that a foreshadow or what?
Yeah, they were ahead of the curve, man. Okay, listen, we're a half hour late to our commercial break, so let's get this in. Our guest tonight, Robert Bauer. You hear the conversation. We're going to continue it right after this. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Robert Bauer, and talking about everything that we've touched upon tonight. It is a reflection of where we are right now in society. And I just feel that we are on right on the edge of a breakthrough. I see that. We have the questions of extra dimensions and parallel worlds and the multiverse that science is working on and presenting to us now. Hollywood certainly is covering that subject really well. Marvel, and we have that, and then we have the divisiveness that has surfaced because of this, and groups and subgroups and bubbles and everything else, where the fabric of society that was, to me, in my opinion, held together for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and there's control behind it, but that fabric and that understanding of it, what it meant to be different. Right? To be different, be an individual is now the opposite is in play. To be different is something that is going to be attacked. And when we look at all of this, is it technology that is causing this? Is it natural human evolution? Do we need to get to this stage? What is consciousness? What is that going to play for our future? All of these are the big, big questions that have been there for us for thousands of years. Who are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going next? And that's where we are. And that's the conversation tonight with Robert. Robert, when I lay it out like that, I don't think it's a fear thing. I don't. I'm not projecting fear. But we have to take the courageous steps into the future. We have to do that. And we've got to chart a path.
It's in our nature.
How do we do it?
Well, it goes back to organics. I think that what we're seeing and experiencing is a natural, transformative, energetic shift. And we've seen examples of this throughout the known history that we've currently been sold, which is, I think, extremely suspect. If you're familiar with Fomenko's work on time, he's got a 7-volume tome of data that clearly indicates that about 1,000 years have been added to our current timeline. We're really not in 2024, we're in 1024. So there's all kinds of weird stuff that needs to be, to me, it just throws up more cues. I'm all about Q. I'm all about questioning. And at the end of the day, the most important, and you've experienced this being a dad, Jimmy, when your kids look at you and you tell them something and they look at you back and they go, but why?
Yeah.
Why? And it doesn't matter whatever you put out after that why, it would just generates another why. Why is the greatest question of all time. We suppress it in children and people, saying, shut up, you don't need to ask that. That's a tinfoil hat rabbit hole. That's a conspiracy rabbit hole. That's a woo-woo rabbit hole. That's a whatever hole they've created to put those things in so that they can manage and mitigate them. That explosion of knowledge, the awareness through the internet, one of the things I've been saying for at least a decade or more is I think that when they first put out the internet, and I was just before the internet, I was in 1989, I had my first computer business. It was called Computer Business Services, CBS. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. It's already taken, but I can use it. And all we did was we provided home monitoring on an automated 286 computer that would call. And if nobody picked up after a certain amount of rings, it was programmed to call somebody else. So it was basically the first home alert, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was on BBSs. I was dialing into Champaign-Urbana's computer center, a green screen, all character-based. And I had a 2.5 inches of 14 7/8 by 11 green bar continuous form paper with phone numbers all over the world for BBSs that I could access. Well, now you can talk yourself into cyberspace. You can speak to it and say, take me here and show me this. And it'll go do that. Having that kind of ability and that access, I think that what happened is when DARPA finally, they took this thing called ArcNet, which is what I was installing and configuring in the 80s. I had to go in and set the individual addresses on each card within each computer to get it onto a Novell network, right? So having that whole construct has now become automated, and it's more efficient and more connected with higher processing power, more bandwidth than ever before. The internet got away from them who place your people in whatever category you want, cabal, elites, powers that be, I don't care. Whoever they were, the internet got away from them. And they didn't plan this necessarily. And so when they realized it got away from them, they were also entrenched in it, and they couldn't get away from it except to build their own separate network. Now, what we're in right now is what's known as Web 2.0. It's all HTML, PHP based, right? Web3 is being deployed all over the place. Web3 is based on tokenization and blockchain, what I was telling you about earlier. The entire infrastructure for an internet experience is completely different in this new model. That will be one of the enablers when you were saying, well, how do we get people to this? How do we help make this transition something that is at least less friction and more pleasant as one navigates into this new world, this new reality? The problem is going to be, in my opinion, that there's far too many people that are sucked into an ideology and a groupthink that is based on things that are so far out of bounds of reality and truth that when the actual truth is presented to them, that the cognitive collapse could be significant. And I think a lot of this is also going to come from the world of theology. Okay. So theology being anything that's considered a religion, right? Not necessarily a belief system, but they basically fall into more of the philosophical category, in my view. So on the theological side, in particular, the Abrahamic religions, the stuff that we're seeing all agitated over there right now, the Jews, the Islam, and Christianity, okay? Those are the three Abrahamic religions. Well, they call them Abrahamic religions because they all go back to the same source of being Abraham. It was like, okay, then you guys basically split off. You created your own version. Okay, I got that. I had a Christian music ministry back in the early 80s in Southern California. I was in a Pentecostal church. And we used to play at rest homes and prisons and youth authorities and minister. And at Pentecostal, if any of you know what that is, I mean, it was some heavy duty shit. We were speaking in tongues, laying hands on the sick, casting out devils, the whole 9 yards. So that was just another example of a canned, packaged reality based on a theology. Okay. The Jew, all of the Abrahamic religions have a personality at the top. There is a dude that has characteristics that expresses himself. And I got to tell you, when I jump into something, I don't go head first or feet first. I do a jackknife because I get them both at the same time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When I dove into prophecy and the King James Bible, I was like, what is wrong with this Old Testament? The dude that's in there, he seems angry. He's pissed off all the time. He's sending people out to take people out all the time. I mean, sounds like somebody on earth, not up in the clouds. So there was a lot of questions that I started seeing, and that's what sent me on to the wandering through the woo that I've done to this point. But the theologies are going to have the most difficult problems with the theologies of the Abrahamic, the Western religions are going to have the most problem when our cosmic cousins are blatantly here.
But
you see what I'm saying?
Let's stay there for a second. The word of the night, dogma. The dogma that has been laid out for so many years about ET's arrival or the presence of something else in the universe and that we're not alone would cause everything to go into chaos, anarchy in the streets, the financial markets are going to collapse, religions are going to collapse. But let me stay there for a second. Okay. So that is what we were, so many commissions and so many corporations and think tanks and universities and all presented the reports that stated basically the same thing. And that's what guided this situation that we're into today. But in 2017, New York Times runs a front page article, right? Secret UFO program at the Pentagon, and then the release of the videos, and then the way that all of the legacy media picked up on that story, everybody, and continues through to this day. Nothing happened. Right? The Vatican is still there. The world religions are still there.
Well, that
The,
wasn't. Do you think that that was substantial enough, empirical enough to cause that kind of reaction?
well,
Wouldn't
the media, well, the media did their best, right?
I don't know. I think it was a psyop.
Well, but still, the world got the news, right?
Well, but well, okay. Yes, the world got news of a picture of something, and then more information about there seems to be more of this something that we have pictures of. Okay. It's like, okay, fine. It's the same shit that we've seen for decades. In my opinion, it's another blurry image. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I got some cues. This is military grade visuals, and you still can't get a sharp picture. I'm sorry. There's too many red flags in it being a purposeful psyop to me. And it goes back to that point that I was making earlier. It's not disclosure, it's exposure. It's exposing the fact, and I think that 90%, Jim Goodall and I talk about this all the time. I think there's 90% of what we see is ours.
oh, for sure.
10% is this other realm of stuff. And then you have all these different delineations of who they might be, from Palladians, Arcturians, reptilians. I mean, there's this whole cadre of characters that seem to be somewhere in the milieu of what's going on. And you sit there and you go, well, okay, I'd like to see more empirical information for it to be something that I can latch onto. And that is what to the point of having, is there going to be mass chaos? People going to lose their shit when they find out that there's actually, they come and they land on the front lawn kind of thing, right? And everybody sees it. The Project Bluebeam and some of the other shit that they've been working on and trying to potentially utilize to their own nefarious reasons and agendas. I think we'll probably see more of that kind of thing. My sense is that the cousins have been here since we're here because of the cuz.
Well,
right?
yeah, I get that, but what surprised me was the expectations of lunacy that was supposed to bubble to the surface, and it didn't.
That's
right?
because they do a very poor job of understanding human motivation. The only thing that and again, place your people in whatever place and characters you want.
Right.
There's a extreme lack, in my opinion, and it's borne out by the way that they have executed the crises, the false flags, the whatever they've tried to pull to herd the sleeple, has been basically, again, from my perspective as a computer systems engineer and a process-oriented first principle thinker, it's been a bunch of ineptness, incompetence. Everything that they rolled out with, then I got to give them an A+ for the spamdemic, okay? Because the biggest thing, the most powerful thing you can use to herd the sleeple is fear. And if you've got a silent, deadly, invisible killer that's afoot, nobody's going to be more afraid of that than anything else. Right?
But UFOs represent the same thing. They represent the exact same thing, and they've been placing the fear factor and national security interest and throwing those labels on that subject. Well, okay, we can talk about it so far. We can take this so far. But beyond that, it's a national security issue. And I would say you are keeping nature.
Yeah.
UFOs are nature.
Mm-hmm.
The cosmos is nature. This is that's not privileged information. That's our information, and they're keeping that from us because of national security issues. And I'll go this far. When the reveal happened in 1995, 96, 97, 98, that exoplanets beyond our star system exist. And now today, it is an accepted scientific fact. Every star that you see has at least one planet. Every one.
Mm-hmm.
So now that drip has been coming out, right? And that realization has soaked in with humanity. People are backing up going, Of course we're not alone. There's trillions of stars in the Milky Way, of which we're just a little dot in the rest of the universe.
We are a speck.
Right. And so how much intelligence is out there? And the answer is infinite, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of it is aware of this planet? Again, it is an extremely large number just in our Milky Way and our celestial neighborhood. Right. So the question, of reptilians, octopus, alien, I don't know, right? Robots, probes, unmanned stuff, whatever.
Well, one of the things that we can see for sure, and this goes back to my whole premise of what even Informatica, the metrics in the matrix is about, and it's all about observation. You have to observe to see what information is available before you can adapt it and analyze it and then adopt it and go, okay, how am I going to put this into the paradigm of the reality I inhabit? That's everything is based on information. And the metrics is the information containers. However you create, however you want, using however you want to measure it. But it becomes a pattern. And that's how everything seems to function. Our minds work. We are pattern recognition machines. That's how our minds process data we look for patterns and associations and maps to other things that we already know so that we can have them in a frame of reference for them. But the whole idea of the cosmos, to me, is just another example of patterns. There's nothing but geometry everywhere we look. And this is where the folks in the Enlightenment, the Descartes, now Spinoza was pushing off against that. Leibniz was also had a whole different model, which I think is extremely interesting. And Leibniz was the guy who, between him and Newton, did calculus. Okay. So they looked at the world in this, and this is where I think part of the transitional knowledge through the knowledge apocalypse is going to be very critical to enabling the transformation of consciousness that we're going through now. And that is the understanding the observational awareness of yourself, your sentience, your sense of self, because that's the nut of everybody's nugget. If you don't start there with where you are and how you see and think and look at things, and then examine self-reflection, self-examination. Why do I feel this way about this? Why do I think this way about that? Those of us that are, gotten into the seasoned citizen category, we have a whole bunch of time behind us with a shitload of experiences that we can go draw on. And I don't know about you, Jimmy, but I'm betting that you have had this experience. Something happened in your past, and it was really bad. You weren't happy with it. It didn't work out well for you. A few decades later, you look back at it and you go, oh, yeah.
Best thing that ever happened. Yeah, it's the best thing that ever happened. Well, the journey, okay, you've mentioned this a few times tonight, but the point needs to be driven home. You and I talking right now doesn't happen. My life, my daughter, but doesn't happen if I didn't go through that shitstorm 25 years ago. Right. And people want to romanticize time machines. Well, I would go back and I'd find my lost love and I would do this and I would do things different. What, you know what, then you wouldn't be where you are right now, even to have that thought. So you need to be very careful, man. The journey, man, I don't want to be, thank you, Sensei. I don't want to be that guy. But the truth is very, very simple.
Yes.
There's no good without the bad. There's no positive without the negative. There's no black without the white. There is no positive. That's the way it works. And that's all. That experience is part of the journey. And I wouldn't change a thing.
No.
Man.
And you shouldn't, especially, and you will feel more satisfied and grateful for your experience when you look back and you reflect and you constantly self-examine. Why does this feel this way? Why did I have that experience? I mean, it's extremely liberating when you have this sense of there is no hierarchy. There is nothing other than consciousness and your uniqueness within it, along with all the other uniqueness, all the other individual frequency stamps. And this is one of the ironies, and you'd mentioned this earlier, this whole, right now, the conversation is cluttered with crap and a cacophony of just nonsense about identity, right? And the whole thing is sprung into these voluminous categories of definitions I can't keep up with, nor do I really even care. I've gotten to the point to where I'm oversaturated with it. I'm tired of being told there's a new category, a new group of victims, and the perpetrators are over here, and they've got this class and all that other stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I am personally a bit pissed off at the attack on old white guys.
What but we're not allowed to complain.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not going to change now after 67 years. It's just not in the cards.
Right,
okay?
right.
What I do know.
Hold on. Yeah. Let me say this. let me jump in. No matter how bad, if you're listening to this show, right, you are at a level that 99% of the world isn't in. And therefore, no matter how bad your life is, you haven't paid the rent in 3 months, your car's about to get repossessed, you haven't paid your electric bill, you've got spoiled milk in the refrigerator, right? No matter how, it's just like, oh man, you just lost your job. No matter how bad you think it is, there is somebody on this planet that will literally cut off their right arm to be you. So stop with that. Stop. Just no matter where you are, man. If you're listening to this show, you are at a level, right? So don't complain. No, just get to the next day, work through it. Because I've been in those positions.
Me too.
I've been in those. I've come home from work, from a job I just got fired from, got home, and my electricity was shut off. And my bank account was overdrawn, all at the same time. So I know what I'm talking about, right? But that thing got me to right where I am right now, speaking with you. So that's a reality check that everybody has to just understand and absorb. It's just the way it is. So
And the really important thing, in my opinion, is when you do that self-examination and you self-reflection and you start trying to figure out, why did you have this experience? Why did you think this? Why did you do that? You have to look at them very objectively. You have to strip away, because one of the most powerful things is the feeling. I use this as an example of time travel. People go, there's no such thing as time travel. I'm like, really? Why don't you put on a song that you listened to when you grew up and tell me you're not traveling back in time? Okay. You're smelling it. You're feeling it. You're seeing it. You're touching it. You're tasting it. I mean, that, and what that is that frequency, that stamp that occurred when you had that experience is still out there. And all you're doing is attenuating your vibration to that frequency stamp. That's how memory works. That's how remote viewing works. That's how psychic abilities work. This is all, again, in my opinion, doesn't matter what divination tool you're using. Jeff's charts are absolutely amazing. Tarot is amazing. Divinations with dowsing rods, scrying, tarot cards. I mean, there is all of these are just different ways to access the infinite field of frequencies of energy that we are inhabiting. And being able to look at a trend and a direction of where that energy is flowing, where those individual waves and collective waves and cycles within cycles, there you can, if you're paying attention, you can see them manifest, and you can get a sense of where they're going to end up. That's the predictive, the intuitive, the insightful component of consciousness that we all have. So I really believe that the realization of these things at the simplest level. This isn't some theology, philosophy, or science. This is just observation. That's all I'm sharing is my interpretation of the observation of the experience that I've encountered.
Have you seen something in the sky that you can't explain?
Yes. 3
And-
times.
Okay. So when that happens, and I have too, I'm not going to get into specifics here, but when that happens, the paradigm shift is not that we're not alone or aliens or anti-gravity or that's all byproducts.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is we're not being told what is real.
Mm-hmm.
That is being held from us. And so that is the journey. That's the hero's journey. I need to get to, all of us, we need to get to the other side and get those answers, because that what I just saw is not what I've been told. That it's the opposite. There's something else to this reality, and that's it. I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm not. Could be.
Well, you see, Jimmy. You see, Jimmy, and that reaction you just had. I'm not saying it's aliens. That's a part of the packaging that's made you react and think that way. When in reality, it's not that it's not just aliens. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on out there that are way beyond just another alien entity, another description of some form. And I've noticed that here's a couple of things I'd like to see what you think about this. I've noticed when I observe this whole alien, the mythos, all of the different stories and so forth, and all the experiences and documentation and so forth, it seems that there's that the universe consciousness, when these things express themselves, other types of life forms, they seem to have a proclivity for a humanoid form. There's always a torso and a head and 2 legs and an arm, and they might be covered in scales. They might look like a lizard. They might be a Palladian. They might be something else. But there seems to be that kind of consistency of the expression.
You want my answer? You want my answer?
Yeah. What do you think?
DNA is universal. DNA is universal. It's the same on the opposite side of the universe as it is here on planet Earth. What dictates the differences? Size, gravity, height, atmosphere, skins, scale,
environment,
all that dictates the difference. We have the variety of species just right here on this planet, right? But
the stuff in the ocean is mind-boggling.
But DNA is universal.
Yes.
And what's pretty efficient? Bipedal, right? Stereo ears, stereo eyes. You got to eat. You can smell, the senses. These things are dictated through DNA that is universal, and where the meteorites, the asteroids that are floating around in the vacuum of space have the basic amino acids and sugars that make up RNA. And it's living and flying around space and crashing into planets, just like here. So that's my answer. Why would we think? Now, I'm not saying that we couldn't have octopus aliens. Sure, because we have octopus here. Octopi, I should say. Octopi. And there could be varieties, because the universe is so big and the amount of life out there is so varied and so vast. It's a number that really doesn't have an end. So there has to be a variety. They're just we have buses here and we have Volkswagen Beetles. They both do the same thing, but they look different.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that of all of that life, and I agree with you, I think that there is a whole bunch of different expressions, not only in the physical realm or what we call the materium that we are in, but in the etherium, in the invisible world, where the demons and the angels and the disembodied spirits and all those things seem to inhabit, right? Do you think that for some reason or not, that we are somehow special in this giant soup of life.
Nope. Far from it. We're the exact opposite of that. We are as common as anything. We're bacteria. We're that common. We're a very simplistic thing. And we are an example of everything else that is out there. But the other part of that, you brought up frequency a lot tonight. This is a whole nother conversation. We can do it on another show. Okay. And invite you back and we can talk about DMT all night.
Oh, but yeah. Plant medicine is what is my gig.
Not psychedelics, not mushrooms, no. DMT specifically. But anyway,
medicine. Yeah, go ahead.
But anyway, that we are only exposed to the frequency that we are on right now. You go a millionth of a degree left or right off of that frequency, and you are now in another dimension. And so what is living there? What can be seen there? Well, that's the reality of where we are. So when you look at other species or other ETCs, extraterrestrial civilizations that are out there that are 1 degree off left or right, or 1,000 degrees off, right, left or right, we would never see them or make contact. Right? They're not in. And so what we see here bounce in and out of our reality, ghost, spirits, entities, ships in the sky that phase in and phase out, I think are representations of that. And when you go and have a DMT experience, your brain is trying to calculate the geometry of and the math of what's going on, because, and you said this, we right now, our brain, our eyes are making a trillion calculations in 1,000th of a second to our reality, but it's programmed in, so you don't have to re-see it. Your brain already knows that it's there, and it makes the connections and so forth. So it's not as taxing on our memory banks. But when you do the DMT experience, where you go into this other parallel world, your brain is now experiencing something for the first time, and it's having to do all those calculations, man. It's got a whole new data set that it has no pattern recognition for at all. But right? It's real. It's real. And it's just as real as well, if you and I are real right now, that's a whole nother conversation.
I'm an avatar, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But that, I think that we are now starting to understand this part of, and this next stage of evolution, that the question of extra dimensions or parallel worlds or a multiverse entanglement is a really good example of that. And DMT is a key to going into. The first time I did DMT, Robert, by the way, we went off the network 4 minutes ago, but this will stay. This will be in the podcast and stay on YouTube. Is this last year? This is a true story. Last year, on a Friday, I was in Egypt, and I went into the Great Pyramid by myself. Okay. And I had 20 minutes, and then everybody else was coming in behind me. So I went up into the King's Chamber, right? That's not the story. The story is, later on that night, I got on a plane and I flew back to LA, and I get home and I go upstairs with my luggage into my bedroom, and I drop my bags, and I went, I was in the King's Chamber this morning. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? To go from one country to another, one reality to another, and just make the realization, right? Okay. So DMT. I do it. I come home that night. I drive home, right? I get home, and I did the same thing that I did with the King's Chamber. I went upstairs into my bedroom and went, I went to another world. Ah! Right? It's that kind of reality.
Yes.
It was mind-blowing to me. It was just
It changed your perspective of the way you look at things, right?
unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
7 minutes in and out, right? 7 minutes. Changed everything for me.
Yes.
It was just incredible to experience that. And that's my way of saying going into the King's Chamber and me coming home going to another world.
Same experience.
Because I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I find the whole psychedelic thing along with the anesthetic thing quite fascinating. Did you know that anesthesia, when they put you out for surgery, they don't know why it works, but they know how it works. So they can't tell you how anesthesia actually puts you under. And I think it's because of the same thing that happens in plant medicine, which anesthesia was originally made from. So plant medicine, psilocybin, mescaline, DMT. I think what happens, remember I said that the mind is not in the brain, that it integrates and interfaces with the brain to animate the carbon-based meat suit that we inhabit. We have Ubered these meat suits for this iteration, if you will. Well, the mind, I think what happens with anesthesia and these psychedelics that have psychotropic capabilities and properties is that it basically stops the conscious mind from being influenced by the physical brain.
For sure.
So it enables that separation and a clarity to go through into the actual consciousness, into the frequency fields, into that space where everything else is. So I think, and then that's just my opinion and speculation, but I think that's why it's such a liberating experience for those who partake. And I think plant medicine is going to be one of the big helpers of the people that are going to lose their shit over this transformative disruption that we're going through.
Well, I think it's also an example of, because the first time that I've done it twice, the first time was 7 minutes. The second time was 30 minutes. I'm not going to get into any of that. I don't want to have this show canceled, by the algorithms. But the time seemed distorted. See, I saw too much and did too many things, and to come out of that and have that only be 7 minutes, something was compressed or I don't know what, however you want to look at it. But
maybe maybe the experience, the time and space that requires that to happen was expanded. In other words, it was let loose in your consciousness.
Yeah.
So you were able to experience a shitload in a real short amount of physical time.
I had a timer going, right? Okay. 7 minutes. What? And I was stone cold sober. That was the other thing. I mean, it was like instant normie, right?
Yes.
Instant straight work. Anyway, but I think that we experience the same time stretching or compression when we dream. And that's one of the reasons why I really look forward to going to bed. When I was a kid, I fought it like everybody else did. Now, man, I can't wait. Let's go, man. Let's go. And,
do you set yourself up, queue up what you would like to dream about?
I do it all the time.
Yeah,
I've always had that ability, even before I talked to people about it or read about it.
Yeah.
I would do. I did it when I was a kid. I was like, okay, man, I'm going to do this one tonight. I'm going to do this one tonight, and I would set myself up for it. I've talked to dream experts and astro. All of my friends that are really good at this and write books and research on it. when I tell them, okay, yeah, your book is great, but I've been doing that on my own. And, and so yes, I'm able to set myself up for it, and I know what the experience is going to be, and I look forward to it. I love. I don't sleep as long as I used to.
Yeah.
I do like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So if I go to bed at midnight or 1, I'm up at 7:30.
Yep. Same with me.
Yeah, I can't.
Have you? So let me ask you this, because you are, now in this. We're both in that. Your birthday just recently, so happy orbit. So we're now, together in the seasoned citizen category. Do you find the resurrection of the enjoyment of the occasional nap?
Oh, every day. Oh, I have to.
Remember we were kids? It's like nap. No, I got a diaper to fill.
Fight it, man. You fight it. I need. I try to 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. 30 minutes is a luxury, but 30 minutes, if I can pack that in, normally I'll get into heavy sleep. But I'll always set an alarm. I won't. I have a pattern of things. So when I was hosting Coast to Coast, which I did for almost 7 years, right? So Coast to Coast, I would have to be at the studio at 8, 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and the show started at 10 and ran to 2 a.m. Okay. So I would sleep before Coast to Coast. So I would sleep from like 5 to 6. I would get an hour in, get up, shower, boom, done, and go to the studio. And that's what introduced me to the afternoon nap, because I would be able to go into Coast completely clear. If I was up at 7:30 in the morning and worked all day and went to Coast and then worked till 2 a.m., I would be a mess the third hour of the show.
Get through the show, yeah.
No, I would be a mess. But that's the other thing, Robert. Fade to black or TV or film or Coast to Coast, I have to be on my game for every second. I'm not allowed the luxury of getting stupid and incoherent. I can't. My speech, my thoughts, right? My questions, my answer. I have to be at 110%. Now, when I'm done with this show, and we were done 15 minutes ago, right? But we're going to wrap here in a second. But when we wrap, right? And this show is running credits, you know what I'm doing? It's hard, man. I love it. It's my bliss, but that's part of the nap, right? If I didn't take it, no. I've got to run on adrenaline for 2 or 3 hours.
So this is just an example again of a reframing of something that we've been conditioned and taught that we all really need to re-examine, and that is the rest and the fueling part of our biological existence. We're told that we need 8 hours, or you're supposed to sleep here and there, and all these different things, right? In reality, it's the cycle of the individual that is what is not being paid attention to. Goes back to the point you were making that I was trying to tag on to a little bit earlier about the irony of all of this nonsense that's been thrown into the social fabric of discourse about identity. It's been hijacked and it's been weaponized. It's been taken and codified into all of these categories of victims and perpetrators and all this other shit. When in reality, the true thing is it is all about identity. It's about the identity of the self, not what somebody else has pigeonholed you into or packaged you for consumption into this silo or that silo. It's the identity of self. And that's the irony of what they're doing. It really should be focusing on what their lead item is: identity. What is unique about that individual, and why can't that be enough. Why isn't that enough? Because guess what? That's all there is. All we all have is the identity of who we think we are. And unfortunately, a lot of who we think we are has been mangled and manipulated and turned into a bunch of crap. And it's caused confusion in the consciousness, which comes out in the conversation and pollutes the social fabric and the discourse. So there's all that crap going on. The reality of the future, and what I am really, really optimistic about, is that freeing the slaves of mind, the parasitic infiltration of the mental processes, is going to be liberated not only by things like the DMT and the psychedelics we're talking about, and I think they're going to be a very key component to it, but it's also just the general awareness of the shit around everybody. If you have a bullshit meter and it hasn't been stuck pegged to the red for the last few years, then you need to get a new meter.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
it's the oldest saying in the book, or one of the oldest, which I love, is dance like nobody is looking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And I was talking the other night with a friend of mine, Janet. She's probably listening right now. Janet, I'm throwing you under the bus a little bit, but she was telling me about some of the reasons why she enjoyed the way that I do the show. And I told her, I said, you know what the secret is? I don't give a shit what people think. I talk into the microphone like I'm alone, like nobody is listening. I don't care. It's just me having a conversation with a friend. That's what the show is about. And I cannot stop for a second and worry about who is listening or who's going to react to this or what are the repercussions of. No, I don't give a crap.
And that's because
an individual. I'm an individual.
You've achieved the freedom of self by having free thinking and realizing that the only thing that you have, just like all of us, is who we are. And if you are not happy with who you are, then you need to identify what you are not happy with and try to make whatever adjustments that you need to. But before that, even, you have to accept who you are.
Right.
You have to, all the different stereotypes that are put on all the different attractive things between the different genders, right? All of that stuff is just a bunch of distraction and bullshit when the simplicity and the essence of existence is the yin and yang. It is the balance.
Janet just texted me. I swear to God. And she says, I am listening. Yes. And I dance like nobody is watching too. But,
sweet.
So just to that was a real conversation that I was having with a friend. And I think most people would benefit from that mindset. If I stopped for a second, when you think about the size of this show, right, and the audience, and this goes out on 20 different networks, and it's widely listened to, or when I'm on Coast, right, thinking about 2 or 3 million people listening to me live. If I had to stop and think about that for 1 second, who am I offending out there? No. That's it. It's a lot. No, I just don't. I don't give a crap. I don't care if you don't enjoy. There's plenty of other things to go and explore. Go and do that. Right. I'm okay with that. The reason why I am comfortable, and this show happens like it does, is the ability to, and this comes over time, but the ability to not mimic and not wear a mask. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not faking. This thing is who I am.
You're not wearing a mask in spite of all the suggestions otherwise.
I was at my Harley dealer the other day, and talking to a couple of friends of mine there that work there. And And we were talking about this conversation that I had with one of them from the week before. And I said to them, I said, look, man, the stupid shit that comes out of my mouth, I'm not apologetic for it. I can't control. They were just laughing. And I said, it gets me into trouble, but I'm not wearing a mask. You know what I mean? And I just had that conversation with a couple of friends in that I am so comfortable. I'm so happy that I don't wear a mask. And so many people do, right?
Well, and Jimmy, and I think that's one of the things that I've admired of you. I've been following you for at least a decade. And like I said, I'm first time listener, long time caller. What you bring to your show that makes it the uniqueness that it is authenticity. You are authentically you. Being authentically you, you've become very comfortable with. You have accepted yourself, and you've not only accepted yourself, you've embraced it. Because you know that your identity is so unique. There's nobody else like you. And that's the same with everyone. There is no one else but you. So you either acknowledge that and understand it, explore it, embrace it, amplify it, fix the things you don't like, and add the things you want. Because living in not the now, but the next is the way reality moves. It's always in motion. Your mind and how you consciously engage with the frequency sets that you inhabit within your reality is where, remember when the law of attraction came out back in the early 2000s?
Yep.
And I watched that and I said, oh my God, this is going to be good for people. And then I got done and I said, oh, they missed the first part. It's the law of intention. Intention comes before the attraction. It's where you intend and you focus your energies that then attract and resonate. And it's not, attraction is really the wrong word. It's that entanglement that you mentioned earlier. When we engage with the frequency sets that we are aware of and we seek the ones that we aren't aware of and add them to our stack, we find a new dial and that can attenuate to the frequencies that we want.
Right.
It's the resonance that is happening that's a natural attractor, because you're resonating with that frequency set. And that's how it actually comes into being. It's not an attraction. It's an entanglement with that resonant frequency. So for me, and I know we probably need to wrap it up here. For me, I see a great awakening in the sense of the great awareness that is going to lead to a reimagining of everything. We're going to be able to reimagine the history, the knowledge, the science, the philosophies, the theologies, all of these different delineations that have been set up to define, delineate, and give distinction to the reality we inhabit. And it's all based on somebody's speculation. So at the end of the day, that's all we all have is our own personal speculation.
Well, and that's how you learn.
Exactly.
You're never going to learn something new if you're hanging out with somebody that is exactly the same as you.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room. And when we were, I hate to be the old curmudgeon, right? But when we were kids, when we had a block party on the 4th of July and we're out there blowing shit up, and all of our neighbors get together, you've got the guy that works at the auto parts store, you've got the computer programmer, you got the guy that works at the bank, you've got the Vietnam vet that's always working on his car in the driveway, you've got this rainbow coalition of different people, religions and political beliefs and everything else, right? But we all got together and started lighting stuff and blowing stuff up and cooking hot dogs and getting drunk and drinking beer and playing a little basketball and doing our thing, right? And that we need to get back to that individuality, and it's the fabric of this country, and it's the fabric of the world.
It's the essence of our existence, is the individuality of the frequency stamp that makes up who we are. And it doesn't take, you don't need mystic stuff. You don't need magic stuff. You don't need, although magic is just stuff that we don't understand. I love, if you're not familiar with Dean Radin's latest book.
Love Dean.
His book, Magic. Exceptional. I've got all of his books. But the idea that the reality we inhabit is very simply energy, frequencies, and our individual essence. That's all it is. And how those things construct, what are their habits, what's their nature, what are their characteristics, what's the attributes. That's the nut of the nugget, the first principles approach to what is this reality I'm experiencing. I don't want to listen to the religions. I don't want to listen to theologies. I don't want to listen to belief systems. I don't want to listen to philosophies. What am I experiencing? Oh, there's this thing called frequencies. Well, that sure feels like something I can put my teeth into. And there's all kinds of waves, and it's constantly in motion. Well, that's what I'm experiencing. Consciousness is pervasive, and it has characteristics that have been classified as psychic phenomena. Telekinesis, clairvoyance, any kind of predictive capability, psychic, all of that are just components of the consciousness that we are from. That's why people experience them. Some have different degrees of talent and skill and are more finely tuned in some areas than others. That's a part of the individuality of our own frequency signature in the cosmos. Once I got to that point, for me, all the other stuff it was like, okay, I don't need the hierarchy. I don't need the grouping. I don't need the rules and the conditions. I just need the nature and the habit of reality, and I can engage with it. And I can flow through it with less friction, more wonderment. I can wander in the woo and my overly fertilized field of imagination, because there's way more curiosity going on there than anything that I've been told or shown or sold over time about how that really works. So to me, going back to the point about this transition and from the shit show that we're in now, I am unbelievably optimistic about what's around the corner. I think that what we're going through is necessary, and it's required, and it's going to be messy, and it's not going to be fun, but it's not going to last long, because all of the frequencies and the energies that are on the other side of this 400-year decline, new energy cycle coming in, is going to fuel our future. And I think we're going to see a renaissance of knowledge, inspiration, innovation. And I think that that's going to propel us into a different state of being human.
Great way to end the show. Thank you so much, Robert. And I want to remind everybody, robertbauer.com. And also, if you want all of this stuff on some apparel,
yeah,
mindwearapparel.com too as well. The links are below, and you can follow not only his show and everything that he does, and I'm sure he's got another book coming out. You can do all of that on his websites. We have it on our website, on our social media, and in the video description below. Robert, I look forward to our next conversation, my friend. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. Perfect.
Thank you, brother. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
robertbauer.com. It's right there. And I want to remind everybody what is going on tomorrow night. Thank you, Robert. Perfect show tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, Michael Schratt is back with us. We're going to do part 2 of crash retrievals that we started last week. So that's tomorrow night on Fade to Black. Until then, all I've got for everybody is go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.